Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. It's episode number 92 for the week of the 8th of August. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the Walt Disney Company's investors call, which included Mulan becoming a premium rental through Disney Plus. We'll be talking about how many subscribers they've got, the launch of the brand new streaming service Star, which I'm going to have a lot more to say on. We'll also be talking about our thoughts of Howard, and a lot more. But before we go any further, a couple of bits of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do subscribe either on the audio platforms such as Spotify or Apple or Google, or on YouTube as well. And also just a big thank you to all of our patrons for all of your support. From as little as $1 a month, you help support the podcast and also the YouTube channel and the website, and it really makes a big difference. You also get access to an exclusive weekly Q&A video that I do, plus little bits and pieces extra. So big thank you to Lauren, Jacob, Sarah, Joshua, Giuseppe, What's on Netflix, Andrew, and Julie. And I also just want to make a huge thank you also to our mods over on our Facebook group, because really and honestly, I couldn't do it without you guys, but I just wanted to throw that one in there as well. So let's jump into the news, and there were some big ones. We had that investors event, which always brings a few nice things, usually from the business point of view, which has a ripple down effect. Obviously, Disney are really struggling right now in terms of the parks kind of being closed and being open and not really fully doing. Films aren't being released, which is another massive issue. And streaming is now their new main thing. They're going all in on streaming. They know this is where they need to make money. I think in some ways this year has shown them that that's what they've been doing is right, and now they need to double down on it and invest even heavily into this going forward. So let's start off with the good news. Disney Plus hit 60 million subscribers, which is fantastic news. They've actually hit their 5-year goal in the first year. One would say that maybe their goal was quite low to begin with, but that's what we did say when they said it. But they've hit it, and now they can set themselves new things. They've apparently got over 100 million subscribers through all of their platforms, because they've got 30 million on Hulu. And then they've also got ESPN Plus as well. And that's all something they're going to continue to try to increase and try to change as they move forward. And they keep sort of basically heavily investing. They're going to be heavily investing in more Disney Plus originals. They know that the originals are what brings in new subscribers, and the library is what keeps subscribers. So they are aware of that issue, and they're just going to be investing more in it. Filming is starting to get underway in a number of different areas, so things are starting to move again for them. It's not a huge surprise, but it's starting to. I think they maybe got past that feeling of we've got to hold on to everything because we're not going to have anything. They're now going, no, we are actually going to have some stuff coming up in the future. But yeah, what was kind of your big takes that you saw out of this?
Well, the biggest take, of course, is one we'll come to in a second. Actually, the two biggest takes.
Yeah.
Other than that, kind of not all that many surprises. If you've been paying attention for the last 4 months or so, yeah. Obviously. They're doing a little bit better than I expected that they were going to be doing. I thought the parks would hit them a bit harder. I know that sounds a little bit weird because the parks did get hit really hard, but I don't know. I thought it would be a bigger line item, honestly. Maybe. They've still got
Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland. They're both still shut. So,
right.
But I think the fact that they are now generating some revenue, and I think they're still turning a profit on that, even just not as much. So that kind of eases off on some of it.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of it has to do with Walt Disney World being open. Yeah. Opinions on whether or not it should be may vary, but it is open and they're making money off of it, and that's helping them out, obviously. Yeah.
But streaming definitely seemed to be the thing they were focused on, because right now, basically the stock market, and this is the thing with the investors calls, it's very much about investors and the business side of things. And the basic main thing was that streaming is the future. It's what they've got. All their production lines set up to produce content for, and they're kind of going to be going more and more heavily into that. So let's first off talk about Mulan. Now, Mulan, they've had to make a big announcement where they obviously pulled it from it's been moved from its March slot to July, and then it's got moved to August. Then they pulled it, and now it's going to be coming to Disney Plus on September. I think it's the 4th. I've just listed it.
It's the first week of September.
Yeah. So it's going to be arriving, but they're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's going to be a premium kind of rental. It'll be priced at $29.99. Now, the good thing is with this one is that apparently when you do rent it, you do get access to it kind of pretty much until it gets added to Disney Plus properly. So it apparently becomes part of you'll be able to access it for weeks or months before it because it will be coming to Disney Plus like normal. We have to think, had Mulan come to the cinema on the same day, how long would it take before it arrived on Disney Plus normally? That's the thing you probably got to take into account. And then you're always going to have access for a lot longer. So that does, I think, add a little bit more value. It's not like it's a 48-hour thing. Of course, a lot of hoopla around this. A lot of subscribers aren't happy about the fact that they're not getting it. And it's kind of like, well, if they put it on iTunes, we wouldn't have had it anyway. So it's like, it's that kind of weird thing of it's going on Disney Plus, but it's kind of this like weird. I think everyone kind of wants Disney Plus to be this, everything's available in one package. And I think things are going to start changing maybe a little bit in terms of how they view Disney Plus. And we'll be getting into that on the Star Project later. But I think it's a bit of an odd one. I think the price is very high, $29.99. They're definitely setting up as a high tier product. I think $19.99 might have been a little bit more easier to swallow. Yeah, it's of course. I mean, the Facebook group. Not most people just are like, no way am I spending that. There's a lot of families going, actually, that's a really good bargain. I think there's always that difference of maybe like you and me, where we go to the cinema and we go once, we pay for once, we take our own snacks and probably try and get in and out as quickly and as cheaply as we possibly can. Whereas some people turn it into a big event, it's a whole family day out, and it costs them hundreds of dollars to go to the cinema. So therefore, there's that bit of a difference of what they view it. A lot of backlash from cinemas. Cinemas feeling like they've been done over. There was this one video of this guy in France destroying a Mulan sign with his baseball bat, which definitely got a lot of people's attention. Germany and the UK have also they've been unhappy. It is going to be coming to cinemas in countries where Disney Plus doesn't exist. But yeah, it's a bit of a messy one. Bob Chapek did say that this is a one-off. I think the term one-off will really depend on how well it does, as whether or not it is a one-off. Disney have been very supportive of the sort of going to cinema routes. They've been holding stuff back. They didn't really do the Universal and Warner Brothers, but even they had Disney obviously moved the one and only Ivan and also Artemis Fowl away from cinema. So they've had to do this. They had to, but a lot of cinemas are really pulling on Disney because Disney is their lion's share of the big blockbusters. And if Disney start playing around, and I also think as well, cinemas are, they're on their knees, they're desperate, and they know that if everything's changing so quickly, and they almost feel like they're not in control of all of this. What did you think of the Mulan situation?
All right, so there's a whole lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
You just rattled off a bunch of stuff and a lot of stuff that needs responding to. Let's start from the beginning. It coming to Disney Plus as a premium rental in and of itself is something of a Pandora's box here, or a slippery slope, however you want to look at it. Yeah, they do say it's a one-off, but I understand a lot of people's concern about this because I get both sides here. But if you are paying for Disney Plus and now you're also saying there will be premium content on top of it, it does feel like it's a devaluation of what you're paying for. Now, that is also with the understanding that this is a true premium content. This is not something where they're like, oh, it's been in theaters for 5 months already. We'll put it on a little earlier than you would have expected at a premium. No, this is a full release that you are not getting any other way. It's right there. So I get why they're doing it, but at the same time, I'm like, I would have preferred you launch it on iTunes and Amazon and keep them separate. But of course, if they launch it on Amazon and iTunes, then a little bit of that pie goes to Microsoft, or I don't know why I said Microsoft, Amazon or Apple. I mean, it would probably end up on the Xbox and the PlayStation as well. So, so obviously they want as much of the pie as possible. So that's the first thing. Second thing, $29.99 price. I'm with you on the main point. For me, this is a terrible bargain. I live by myself, and with COVID going around, the chances of me going to a Lake Mulan watch party are pretty much nil at this point. So for me, it's a terrible price. the second you add a second person, like you've got your wife at home, the two of you watch together, that becomes a $15 per person. That's right in the range of what non-matinee pricing is here in the States. So that's acceptable pricing. The second you add a third person on, $10 a person, bargain. Absolute bargain. I've talked to my boss. He's got 2 kids in the like 8 to 12 range, somewhere in there, as well as another coworker in the same. And they're just like $30 for Mulan. Or that's like a third of what I was going to pay in the theater. Great deal. So it's all situational. And it's not the same as like Frozen or honestly even Trolls 2, which wasn't as big a headline movie as Mulan is. And this isn't like, oh, we accidentally released it right before a giant pandemic. This is, we've been pushing back. They needed to salvage something. Yeah, I'm not too keen on the price, but I think it is perfectly fair for what they're offering.
Well, I think that there's a very tricky one with that price point. And like you say, I mean, I'd look at this and go, well, I'd say like the cinema people going, well, Disney did they've pushed it back twice. They pushed it back a number of times to try and make sure they could get it into cinemas. And eventually the clock ran out. That's the way I look at it. The clock has ran out on what they're doing, because they've got a number of movies still scheduled to come out in September. The New Mutants. They've also got, I think, the David Copperfield movie. There's a few other ones coming out in line that they're going to. So it's like Disney they didn't just go straight. They could have done this in March. That's the thing that they could have done, and just gone, no, we're just going to do this, but they didn't. They did hold back. So I kind of got to say, well, Disney tried to, and then they moved it again to try and hold on to it, but eventually the market's just dictated. I do think moving forward that it's going to be interesting to see how this all works. I think personally, and this is going to tie into the Star issue, and I'm going to say it again a bit later on, I think Disney Plus is now being viewed as a gateway into their television. Like you say, if they don't go through Apple, and if they don't go through Google and all the rest of it, they get a bigger cut. And if they can get, I don't know, a certain percentage of Disney Plus subscribers to pay up, they could claw back the cost of I think this is literally a case of claw back the costs of making it. And if they can make a little bit on the side, great. But they're just trying to claw back. It's too expensive just to put on Disney Plus. It was what, $200 to $300 million movie. The budget is just it will not pull in for Disney Plus what they want. How quickly it arrives on Disney Plus, I don't know. I mean, if the people have paid for it, I got to be thinking at least 3 months. It can't be 2 weeks, because that would be a really bad thing if they did what happened when Onward.
And Frozen. I think Frozen was a premium rental for Frozen 2, was a premium rental for a little while, and that was understood. They announced it up front. It's the premium rental, but if you wait a little bit longer, it's coming to Disney Plus. There is no way this is coming out any less than 3 months, and I think 3 months is optimistic. I'm thinking half a year, to be honest. But at the same time, I was also thinking that this wouldn't happen until things got really dire in like October or November. So September is already moving up the timeline that I kind of mentally had prepared for. So who knows? But 3 months minimum is what I would lock in right there. It's and in regards to money back, they're leaving essentially about $1 billion on the table with this. Yeah, you can talk about the $30 price point, but at the end of the day, they were expecting a box office take of more than $1 billion. And they will be lucky to turn any sort of profit on this. Because, again, production costs, probably around $200-something million, not exactly a small amount of money to begin with. There's also the promotional costs, which are typically separate from production costs. And those don't normally get publicized, but you have to imagine with all the things that got sent out, that French cinema owner, he didn't like go out and buy that stand. It was provided by Disney as a merchandising thing.
Well, all the billboards, all the big signs everywhere, the rental of those signs, that all costs money. Because every time they move the date back, they're basically all that money has just been lost. This is why, I do think, with the New Mutants and stuff, they still keep dropping those trailers and stuff, because I am wondering of whether or not they are just going to throw that one out as essentially the sacrificial lamb, where they're just going to go let's see what the market will do, because this is the test. And I'm wondering if they've gone, well, we don't really like this movie, so let's just see how the market reacts to it. I'll be honest, as of today here in the UK now, if you go to cinema, you've got to wear a mask. That's in the law. Yeah, I'm not gonna go do that. I don't want to go sit in an air-conditioned room. I'll be honest, it's like there's a lot of questions now about Black Widow. And also, it's like this whole thing of what's going on with the whole situation. It's just speeded it all up. It's very messy. Cinemas are essentially fighting to survive. But there's also a lot of people also calling on the fact of going, well, they haven't really adjusted them. And even they were talking about, they're going to have to raise the prices to cover all the COVID charges. And it's like, some people are saying, every other industry has had to change, but cinemas have been very like, we are staying the same, and we want the same system we've always had, and everything else has changed now. And it's like, is cinema's part of it? I mean, a lot of people talk about the cinema experience. I'll be honest, that cinema experience for me seems to just be getting less and less pleasant as more and more people just become less and less respectful of space and time. So, sitting there and people are on their phones and kids are jumping around and running around the screens and people are chomping. It's like, it's not the same as it was, and that's ultimately something I think people are aware of as well.
Yeah, the cinema experience, I totally get what they mean by it. I agree with them in theory about it. Like, I love going to the cinema for the big blockbuster movies. As much as we talk about our home entertainment system, when you've got something like the Avengers going up on the big screen with the full theater surround sound, it's a great experience. But at the same time, I get what you're saying too. Like, I remember going to see The Force Awakens opening weekend, and the person I was next to, somebody I didn't know, was commentating the entire movie, like under his breath. And I'm just sitting there like, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Please let me enjoy the movie. And I did at one point, and the person sitting on his other side was also like, can you tone it down a little bit? And he did for 5 minutes before he was right back into it. And there's that part of the cinema experience too. I don't like going to stuff on opening weekends just in general, but
I must be honest. I got into the habit of if Mulan would, on a normal circumstances, I try and go the first showing on the first day at like 9 o'clock in the morning on my day off, and because it's usually would be my normal day off, and usually it'd only be like half full. That time of day you wouldn't tend to see a lot. The idea of going in the evening now is just like, no. But that's ultimately, a lot of people like that. It's a whole event going to the cinema. I think for us, it's more about often just going to see the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a family too, that factors in as well. It becomes an event when you take your kids, that they get super excited to see the animated movie or whatever. And it feels like something different for kids. It's a treat. Whereas, again, you and I, no kids, I'm going to see the movie. I'm not buying popcorn, not buying a soda, any of that stuff. I am there to see the movie and enjoy the movie. Kids it might as well be like a ball pit and a slide as far as they're concerned. I don't know.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm kind of I'm in two minds about it personally. As far as obviously doing the podcast and videos and the website and all the rest of it, I feel like I need to see it to comment on it and to obviously do bits and pieces. I did mention that to my wife about the price, and she was like, no chance. And I was like, well, we'll do it anyway because of. But I think had we not been doing this, I don't think I would be jumping straight onto it. I still think Freddie. I think even at 20, it was a bit of a push, but for Freddie, that's like borderline for me personally. And I'm like, I don't really want to encourage this. So that's why like.
And that's part of the slippery slope too.
Yeah.
If this does very well for them, we will see it again. Mm-hmm. Black Widow's the obvious candidate, but I would expect to see it on less top tier movies as well. Like you wouldn't see it on like the one and only Ivan or something like that. It's going to be on stuff that people are anticipating. But as with these things, it will become more and more just accepted.
But also there's another argument to that as well of like now we could start seeing when a movie also gets released on digital platforms such as iTunes, this could just become the standard where it becomes available on Disney Plus as a premium option as well. And I think I could see that happening just in general now, where the gateway is that you can get access to it for maybe 3 months if Disney want to keep doing that system. As much as they're talking about trying to reduce that window. And I think the trouble was Frozen 2 and onward have set unreal expectations of that. I mean, I just cannot see how that was Disney would want to have embraced that too quickly, because they're just losing money doing it. So I think in general, you could end up seeing, Black Widow arriving 3 months later on Disney Plus, and then 3 months later after that, it's available to all subscribers, and they kind of get a double whack on that one. And I think Disney Plus is going to become that gateway window for Disney to be in your television. I think, it's got that many people using it. Now they're looking at going, we can now use this technology as almost like a storefront. And it's not ideal, but then you look at what, Amazon do this, and also other platforms as well. I do, and it's that thing of like, well, if it's available on iTunes, why not put it into Disney Plus?
Well,
there is a difference. You're not buying it. That's the trouble.
Not buying it, and then there's also the Mushu in the corner over here that we haven't talked about yet, which is if you want to maintain access to it, if you buy it for $30, you do have to maintain your subscription. Yeah. It's kind of held hostage by that subscription, and I have to admit I find that a little underhanded. If you buy this, if you pay $30 for this and you let your subscription lapse after a month, you should really still be able to access this. This is not it got added. This is my benefit for being. This is something you pay for on top of. And I was going to say, I think it might be a technical thing of Disney Plus seems to be set up to, you have to log in to get in there. That's the thing. Well, they should be able to have you can log in just as an account without having to be a subscriber. And I think out of all the slippery slope, out of all the questionable things, this is the one that gets me, is I don't want my content held hostage by the subscription. Like I own digital movies across multiple platforms, Amazon, iTunes, Google, just whatever had a good deal at the time. But I have never had to be like, well, you can only watch this Amazon movie if you have Amazon Prime as well. I'm like, no, if I bought the movie, I have the movie.
I'll be honest, I've not really gone down the full digital purchase route of, I was still very much, because we didn't get the whole over here, we didn't get digital versions included in the physical products. We still have to buy the DVD or the Blu-ray. You don't get a digital copy automatically like you do in the States. So I've still been buying Blu-rays until pretty much the last few years, where, especially since Disney Plus comes online, I'm just like, there is just no point in me buying Blu-rays, because everything's on hand, and I would rather it's like Frozen 2. It's like, well, I'll just wait till it's on there. Same thing with, and I just stop buying it because I just feel like they're on there. And it's the same thing with other movies. Because I usually would choose to rent them through like Amazon or PlayStation and it's like, for me, once I've seen it, I can wait a few more months. I'd rather just rent it. I do a lot of digital rentals, and that's where I haven't really gone down the hope, because to me, buying a movie, I don't see any point in doing that, because I just wouldn't. I mean, I've started buying games digitally, but I even buy them physically because they're often £10 to £15 cheaper than if you buy them digitally. But that's a choice, and same thing really with Blu-rays and stuff.
Yeah, and with games, there's often a secondary market where once you're done with it, you can resell it. The secondary market on Blu-rays and such is almost non-existent unless you get some super rare collectible. I remember when the Terminator 2 DVD was worth like $100 because it was limited release and then it was gone. This was way back in the beginning of the DVD days.
Yeah, but unfortunately, my Terminator. The reason I have got a Terminator 2 disc, and it's the only disc that I have, and it's actually rotten. It completely went green inside, but nevertheless,
that sounds like a biohazard.
Yeah, it's not so good. The only thing is, as well, I was like, this is the first, obviously moved into a new place. It's the first time we've not got any Blu-rays or DVDs out on display, because they've been shrinking. We got rid of a load when we moved, because ultimately with 3 or 4 subscription packages, we've got hundreds of movies, thousands on demand. There just wasn't the demand for it. So they're all in a box in a cupboard. I mean, how long they stay there till eventually we go, we haven't used these in years, let's get rid of them. But I got rid of box. I mean, I at one point probably had 1,500 DVDs and Blu-rays, but now we're probably down to about 200, and nearly all of them are Disney and Star Wars and Marvel Blu-rays and stuff. But I just think moving forward, it's going to be very interesting to see how Mulan affects and what impact this has.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, and consumers ultimately have to vote with their dollar. Do you think it's too expensive? Don't buy it. Are you annoyed that you have to maintain a subscription? Don't buy it. Disney will be watching this extremely closely, and more than almost any other purchase you can look at, each individual choice will matter, because Disney has to hit that $200 million threshold or whatever breaks them even on costs, Mulan. If they don't break even, this probably doesn't continue. If they make a profit on it, it definitely continues.
Right, moving on from there, which kind of ties into the whole Disney Plus as a gateway. Disney, Bob Chapek announced that they were launching a brand new streaming service internationally called Star. Now, this is going to focus on having content from 20th Century Fox or 20th Century Studios, Searchlight Studios, FX, ABC Studios, and Freeform, which might sound very familiar to everyone in America because that's kind of the content that you're going to see a lot of on Hulu. Now, let's get this out of the way. First off, the reason they're doing it as Star, not Hulu, first off, Hulu doesn't mean anything internationally. It only runs in the US and also was working in Japan. So generally, Hulu doesn't exist around the world. So whenever anyone says, well, you can get that on Hulu, not for the rest of us. The other big issue, and this is the big one that I don't think a lot of people maybe caught on why they haven't done it. If they launch Hulu internationally, Comcast own 33% of Hulu, and they've got a deal where they will buy them out in by the 2024 or whenever they want, and before that, and they have to give them the market value. So if they manage to increase the market value of Hulu by launching internationally and adding a further 30 to 40 million subscribers, they're essentially giving Comcast millions of dollars. So if they call it something else, they don't have to give them a single penny. So that really is something that people need to be aware of going forward. The other thing as well is they have got Hotstar, which is one of the biggest streaming services in the world, running in India. And they're about to launch it in Indonesia in September as well. And I did find this very strange of how they were calling Star an international brand. And it's like, yes, we have got Hotstar here in the UK and in other countries, and it's just full of content from India. I was actually flicking through it last night. I can subscribe to Hotstar here, but it's a little bit different than the US, the one in India, because theirs is Disney Plus Hotstar. So you get Disney Plus and you get Hotstar all in one big app. So that's why they get, all the 20th Century Studio movies. They get the Bollywood movies. They get content from other brands as well. And there was some wording that I kind of picked up from, and I want to read this out because I'd actually even sent this to James. I also sent it to the mods on the Facebook group and a few other people going, how did you read this? Did you read it the same as me? Because he said that first off, they're going to be following the strategy that they had with Disney Plus, but they said, in many markets, the offering will be fully integrated into our established Disney Plus platform, both from a marketing and technology perspective. And it will be utilized under the Star brand, which has been successfully utilized by the company in the general entertainment platform, particularly with Disney Plus Hotstar in India. The fact that Disney Plus has grown as rapidly as it has, both domestically and globally, clearly demonstrates the value of our content. And through the added addition of the Star branded general entertainment offering, we are further extending the value of that content internationally. Now, the concept, it says they're fully integrated. Now, this could mean one of two things. First off, they're going to do it like a bundle where you can, the adverts, for example, will say Disney Plus and Star, get the bundle together. Or is Star going to be within the Disney Plus app as almost like a package deal? Because we have that on Amazon. You can add on extra package deals. On Comcast's Now TV over here, you can get in and you can add the movie package and you can add the sports package and you can and the term integrate was a very weird one. I mean, whether or not it's based on the same technology, but will Star be completely separate, or will it actually be built into Disney Plus internationally? Very weirding in terms of, because I asked you that and you were a little bit too sure either.
Yeah, I was like, I think I came back with my own questions. Like, is it going to be one thing, or is Star the International, or I don't know. It. I have to imagine it's very deliberate how
Vague.
obtuse, vague. Yeah, this comment is that makes me wonder if they actually even know themselves what the end result will be. Not that they have no plan, but that they haven't actually settled on which plan they're going to go with.
Well, we are going to be having an Investors Day event in the coming months where they're going to be detailing all of the plans going forward, announcing bits and pieces, and I'm obviously going to find out a lot more about it then. I personally feel like if they were to integrate it in with Disney Plus, they are going to be able to hit a much bigger market of people. The minute you're going to have a second app means then that people could get lost and not find it. If you put it within the Disney Plus app, suddenly then, if 30 million subscribers internationally can now see it within there. I personally would like it within the app because I like to have it. When I look at what Disney Plus Hotstar is getting, I like that idea. I like it all being all in one. We've talked about it before, but it definitely shows as well. Disney are going, these are these brands, these are these brands. I think the problem is internationally, those brands are nowhere near the same level that Disney Plus is. ABC, Freeform, that would probably be, most people, if you ask people in Britain, they probably would think it was a female hygiene product. It does not have a brand. We don't have the channel over here. It's a non-existent brand. ABC, most people would probably expect it to be, they were singing the Michael Jackson song. ABC isn't a brand in the UK. America Broadcasting Network, it's not and also then in Australia, you got ABC as the Australian Broadcasting Network. You've got that whole mix up. The only thing really there is 20th Century TV. Even FX isn't even, a show over here isn't even a channel over here. So it is much more. And I think if they add it in within the Disney Plus option, it could make things different. It also, unfortunately, I do think as well, it now means that all those shows that we were talking about previously, things like Modern Family, Buffy, anything like that, suddenly now becomes a little bit more like, oh, are they going to want to put that somewhere else on Star? It looks like it's going to be mainly more like just a library content. They might get all the Hulu originals and FX originals and stuff, but it doesn't look like they're quite going down the full original market. It's more just going to be a library content, so the price point might reflect that. But very interesting to see this. And also, a lot of other people commented on the fact of, could Disney then rebrand Hulu once they brought out, make it all an international thing? Or are we just going to get like Disney Plus Star? And that becomes like the package. I don't know. It's very interesting to see how it definitely caught me off guard. It definitely, I think, sort of, because everyone I think was assuming Hulu would be going international. And they kind of went, yeah, we don't want the Hulu side of it. We're going to do it because there's not going to be any live TV. There's not going to be any licensed content. It's only from those brands. It's kind of like a grown-up version of Disney Plus, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I wish I had more to add to it, but it's really wait and see. We have to see what the plan is. We have to see how it's going to roll out. I could see several years from now Hulu on the U.S. shores turning into some version of Disney Star or Hotstar, just to maintain that brand, because Disney is not anything if not a brand machine, and they want to make sure that if you mention their brand anywhere in the world, everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the thing is, well, like with Hulu, I know, and obviously Americans are used to it because you've had it for like 10 years, but it was a combination of Comcast, Warner Brothers, Disney, 20th Century Fox, all coming together to basically fight Netflix by essentially tying themselves into contracts and then tying their hands behind their back, trying to fight, because they weren't able, none of the companies really got fully on board because they're all secretly plotting their own plans. And it was just it was always just like a half-bred approach to just the idea of not being able to fully integrate properly.
Yeah, I would take a little bit of issue. I don't think any of the companies had yet started their own ideas. Disney Plus wasn't a thought. No. Peacock wasn't a thought. All the other ones. But they definitely did not want to commit to it fully because they wanted to stick with the tried and true traditional television. Hulu and Netflix both were there, like they were the ones that proved that the concept could work. They weren't the first. There had been streaming attempts before that, but cord cutting wasn't really a thing yet. The television was still how you got content most of the time. It's only been in the recent years that people have really gone, why do I need TV? I've got Netflix. Yeah.
I think the real thing's going to happen is really what happens with Hulu internet. In some way, internationally, Star is a lot of an easier system to take in because it's like it is just it's all in there. All the content from those brands goes in there. And we will be saying things like, it'll be a much more clear defined moment of a movie comes out on Searchlight. Well, that'll go to Star, unless it's a real family friendly thing where it could go either way. But if it gets integrated into Disney Plus, it could be very interesting point of view of kind of like, and this is where I keep thinking of like, like listening between the lines. It's like, hold on, premium rentals, Star. It's like sounding like Amazon Prime. You log into that app and you've got movies to buy. You've got other packages you can bolt on. I mean, it might be a lot more simpler within Disney Plus, but suddenly I'm now going, that you look at that could be quite that suddenly boosts up what Disney Plus is. It is Disney Plus. You've got other stuff. It's a gateway into people's television, and they've got you all going through one app. I think that could be very powerful going forward.
Yeah, well, just let me know when they add on the ability to get free shipping from Shop Disney, and then we'll throw in the Amazon Prime comparison.
That's not a good option for me, really. That's not a good idea. The fact that you have to pay 50 quid to get free shipping on many a times has saved me from spending way too much money at Shop Disney.
See, yeah, you probably shouldn't have said that.
They did. The thing is, you see, is in the UK, Disney Life did actually give you a 10% discount on Shop Disney. And also when you went to the stores as well. So I used the store discount a lot. And also I used to find, say you were buying something for like 30 quid and you didn't want to get to that 5 quid or 50 quid limit. The discount would often nearly take off the price of the shipping. So I did Disney Life. I brought loads of stuff from the Disney store because that discount basically would not wipe out the cost of shipping. So they did actually work. So that's one of those things. There was a couple of things from Disney Life which I did actually really like, and that was one of them. But yeah, so Star and Mulan and obviously the amount of people coming into it really did kind of shake everything up. There was also a Hulu press event this week. We've also had National Geographic. They've announced tons of new shows and things coming. So definitely check out the website. There's tons of bits and pieces. I don't think all of those stuff will be eventually coming down the Disney Plus pipeline, especially on the National Geographic side. I'm not too sure a Bin Laden documentary about his hard drives will probably end up on Disney Plus. It'll probably end up on Hulu. But there were some other ones, and there's also some really interesting ones as well that I think will be coming from National Geographic coming forward. But let's move on now because obviously time's ticking away. Let's talk about this week's big trailer that got released, which was the Phineas and Ferb movie, Candidates Against the Universe. Finally got to see what this thing's all about. I'm going to be honest, I've only ever watched one episode of Phineas and Ferb. Didn't really know who they were until I purchased the video games for Disney Infinity when I used to run a Disney Infinity podcast that me and James used to do together. I watched this trailer. I still don't have a clue what's going on. I know there's a lot of people really excited about this. But I just watched it and it looks nice and it looks pretty zany and I got no idea where this thing's going, but I'm kind of interested to see what this thing is. What about you?
I know even less about Phineas and Ferb than you do. I have not seen a single episode. My entire knowledge of it comes from Disney Infinity, which didn't even have a playset. It was literally just the characters. Yeah. So I know basically nothing. There's a platypus. His name's Agent P or something like that. Other than that, I know nothing. This trailer, I was like, I still know nothing of what's going on. I thought that was the bad guy.
Dr. Doom's Versus or something.
Yeah, him. The old scientist guy. I thought he was the bad guy, but apparently they're friends now. I don't know. I do intend to watch the show. I just finished Gravity Falls recently, which was fantastic. And Phineas and Ferb is next in line because everyone, actually 80% of the people I talk to say it's really good. So I'm going to give that a shot. So I'm not going to watch, I'm probably going to watch the movie first because we're going to talk about it here on the podcast. So I'm going to do it backwards. I'll try to watch some episodes before so I at least have some basic understanding of what the heck is going on there. That said, even though I had no idea what was going on, It did look entertaining. It did look funny.
It's really strange. I don't really feel like Disney Plus is really. I mean, they are doing things with the Disney Channel. I mean, this past week, they did a kind of a little push on the new Proud Family show that's going to be coming. I mean, they are kind of going on it, but they don't feel like they've really fully gone into the whole providing Disney Plus with like Disney Channel, like TV shows and new stuff like cartoons. We've really, I thought we would see a lot more of that, but they really have kind of been sticking to the guns of how they release stuff through the Disney Channel. And, you figure like, this is like the first, like, proper cartoon that we've had from Disney on Disney Plus.
I think so. Everything other than the Clone Wars, which is still arguable because it was a continuation of a series that already existed, although the content was exclusive to Disney Plus. I don't think there were any animation shows that came directly to Disney Plus. They had some shorts, but that was about it.
But I mean, like things like the one on 101 Dalmatian Street and the Legends of the Three Caballeros, they were on other platforms. They weren't exclusive. It's just kind of looking at it, well, yeah, they've not really kind of fully gone into all that. Everything's still going through the Disney Channel network of how they're doing it. That might start, as I said, things are going to start changing and mixing things up. As even during the investors call, they said that they've closed down like 30 Disney channels around the world. This is something that's going to speed up, but I hope we see more of it. Let's now talk about Howard, which is the brand new documentary movie which was added to Disney Plus this past week. Did get to see it. I did actually get to see it about a week or so ago. That's why the review was up on the website. But we're waiting for James to get it so we can have a quick talk about it. So what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was pretty well done. Learned a lot about this man who I didn't know an incredible amount about. And it did give some nice little interesting insights into the creative process at Disney, although that was really only the last half of the documentary. For anybody who has seen the Into the Unknown documentary series, they talked a lot about how Frozen 2 had no plan. They had no idea what they were doing, and stuff was really fly by wire. Spoiler, Howard shows that seems to be business as usual for Disney. One of the stories that I thought was great was how they're like, Beauty and the Beast is like a train wreck right now. It's really boring. It's coming out in like a month. Not really. It was like a year out, but come save it. And the Beauty and the Beast that we know now really was Howard's creation more than anything else.
And also just like how Aladdin kind of was like just jumping around within Disney, and they'd like kind of he'd done all the songs for the movie, and even like in things like The Little Mermaid, of like, I think was it part of the world was not even one of the guys in charge of Disney didn't even want it in the movie, and they said that you need this kind of, and it's like you hear all this stuff, and obviously at the time they weren't filming stuff for documentaries like they are now to use the extra content, so there's probably not a huge amount of content there, but all the stories and stuff, they're all very interesting. If you're into your Disney history, this is very. It's kind of funny as well. I think there's a lot of people that look back on this era and consider it so great, and this was a major part of it. And yeah, I thought that whole aspect of the documentary was great. There was some issues I did have with the documentary. First, I felt it was a little bit slow to get going. I got about halfway. I think it maybe even it seemed like we were probably at about the halfway point really before we started talking about the Disney side of things. And up to that point, I'd really had never heard of Howard until I heard about this movie a couple of years ago at the D23. I remember it coming up as something that people were talking about, and it was floating around. But I really didn't know anything about it. I don't think I've seen Little Shop of Horrors, and so there's a whole load of this of going, okay, what this is like. We're really going in deep here. They're not just sugarcoating it or glossing over his life before Disney in 5 minutes. They really took their time on it.
They did, but I'd also agree that they may have spent a little too much time on it. Because really, what we know him for, even ignoring that this is a Disney Plus documentary and so on, what people know him for is his Disney work. Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, plus a couple other things that he did on the side. Sure, people who've done the research know he also did Little Shop of Horrors. They may even know like the Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name right now, did that. I didn't know he'd done that. That was kind of cool. I appreciated they showed the little bit of how he met Jodie Benson for the first time, because she's obviously a major part of that time period as well. But at the same time, I'm just like, come on. You don't need to spend 30 minutes on Little Shop of Horrors. That's already half of that movie to begin with. So it's important to see where he comes from, because obviously where he comes from shapes what he does at Disney. But that first half definitely kind of like, I want to know about Gaston. I want to know about Ariel. And
very much set down. And I think the thing is, as well, is I think this was in some ways, it's such an important documentary to have on Disney Plus, because obviously, they're openly talking about him being gay and growing up being gay at a time when it was not as socially acceptable as it is now, and that whole aspect to it, and talking about his partners and stuff like that. And I was like this is on a Disney Plus, and I was sitting there going, I wonder how many people are tuning in for this. No idea what's actually this documentary is going to be about. And I really thought that was great. I think this is what Disney Plus needed. I think they know that we need to be able to handle subjects that maybe people don't like, and it's like, we need to have this, we need to have that kind of content on there. The whole concept really of how they were talking about him getting AIDS and how he was suffering and how he died from it, and hearing his family and friends, you could hear them cracking under the the emotional strain of it all. It was like, this is such an important thing, because now people today don't really know so much, especially younger people don't. I mean, I was born in 1980, so I grew up as a kid during the 80s, and I remember we had terrible adverts on TV, and it was a death sentence. It was, we had that whole thing going forward, the whole thing with Freddie Mercury that you've seen in like Bohemian Rhapsody, if you've seen that movie. At that time, it's so different than it is now. And the fact of him trying to hide it from Disney and but also then Disney working with him and working around his illness to get Beauty and the Beast out, because they knew how important it was. Sending the whole team out to him kind of really showed of how accepting they were of it, for them to, they knew how valuable he was, and he wanted to work to the end. But he had to hide it, because he knew that if he said anything, he wouldn't have carried on doing those shows. And it was a very interesting time.
Definitely an interesting time. I kind of wish they'd touched on it a bit more, given a little more context to it, because if you watch just the documentary and for whatever reason you don't know about the AIDS epidemic of the 80s and 90s, it doesn't actually, you don't understand why it was a big deal, the atmosphere around it. The other thing, though, you mentioned that Disney worked with him and so on. I kind of got the impression that they were kind of held over a barrel, like, oh, we have to ignore the moral implications as it would have been seen at the time, and just be like, we need this guy to make music. It wasn't even necessarily, we're standing behind you. It's like, no songs, give us songs, which he did, obviously. But it's hard to put modern morals on what happened at that time and to view it through that lens. I kind of wish they tried a little bit with the documentary, though.
Yeah, almost that kind of thing of like, because I mean, we had a really bad like commercial that would air and stuff about it, and it was like a little bit of context would have been good. It was one of those situations. I think it was a very, I mean, it wasn't originally made for Disney Plus. It was actually, it did get floated around some festivals a few years ago, and Disney picked it up because obviously they felt it was right for Disney Plus. And I think it's such a good move. I think Disney have shown in the last like 2-3 months that they are willing to put some more content on there. I think like between Howard and sort of Black is King and also Hamilton, it's showing that they can give you a little bit more content that is aimed at that, because this is not for kids. I think kids would be bored stiff, and I'm going to be, if your kid is not going to want to watch this. And I wouldn't even say you can speed through to the Disney bit, because I just don't think it's kids are going to enjoy it, because the style is a very more traditional documentary of lots of photographs and talking about it. And I thought the second half was good. I did find the first half a bit too slow, but I mean, it could have maybe it almost feels like it could have been trimmed a little bit from that 90 minutes, maybe 80, 70 minutes could have really helped. But it also helped set him up and set up, and also that whole thing of him talking about watching the parade and him knowing that was his music coming on. And that hit me. I must admit, that was one of those things of going, he did his music, his work lives on right now. And also little things like not realizing like the mob song from Beauty and the Beast was basically kind of inspired by the current times of what was going on, of the lynch mob against people that were gay and had AIDS at the time. And I mean, that was like, whoa. I mean, I never made the connection, but it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, they did try to say like, no, I don't think Howard would have deliberately put his real life. And it's like, do you know any writers who don't put their own life into their works? I mean, that's one of the keys of writing is, drawing on your own experiences. I'd have to assume that at least some of the mob song was drawn from what he saw outside the window. And it's, those stories specifically, I wish we'd had more of that kind of thing. Not necessarily like, oh yeah, he was horribly abused and he wrote a song about how horribly, but what drove him to write some of these songs. You mentioned earlier the Little Mermaid song, Part of Your World, and how the executive was like, no, get rid of this song. This is boring. Kids are going to be wiggling in their seats, the wiggle test, Yeah. And Howard was like, no, you have to have this song in the play, in the movie. And I found that one really fascinating because, Part of Your World is the I Want song, right? Most Disney fans know the I Want song. But that was the song that started the I Want trend. Like if that movie, well, okay, yeah, there were some in older movies, but it became like the signature I Want in Disney moving forward for like the next 10 years. And if it had been cut from The Little Mermaid, all of those subsequent movies might have been very different because they wouldn't have had the I Want song.
But then you have to look at it like going, the 80s movies that Disney put out. You talk about the Wiggle Test. They were aimed at little kids. We had, what was it, like Oliver and Co. and the Rescuers and a few other, the Black Cauldron and a few things like that. And none of them really were hitting the heights of all the musical stuff that we saw in the 60s and 70s and the 50s. The 80s, and you could tell that they were just following it. They didn't, and you then look at like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and how that all changed everything up a bit. And they, I think we call it the Disney not resistance.
That's the Star Wars sequels. That's the Star Wars sequels, and we try not to talk about those too much. So it's like, that whole thing of just like moving forward of how he completely revolutionized Disney at the time, and those songs are a major part of those movies. Without, that's what brought a load of people in, and they're still using it today. We've got, Mulan is literally, the big story we're talking about, and it was that came out of that, era. And, we've had all the remakes, we've got the Little Mermaid literally filmed. I think they're either filming or they're just finishing up their quarantine right now in the UK before they start filming the movie. It's still just as prevalent as it is now, as it was then. Yeah, and it was interesting to hear Howard talk about the songs that came out of those, because there was that whole section where he's like, he's using the songs to tell the story. And if you look back at the older musicals, Cinderella, Seven Dwarfs, etc., while they had music in them, the music was often like a side piece. It might be explaining the situation, or it might be the I Want song, but there was very little actual storytelling in them. When You Wish Upon a Star is really just a beautiful piece that doesn't have much to do with what's going on. Then you get to Little Mermaid, and all the songs are pushing the story forward. Beauty and the Beast, they're pushing the story forward. And that was like that big ticket that Howard very specifically was like, no, this is how you do it. And that in and of itself, just kind of the influence that he had on the changes to Disney storytelling ideas that we still feel today. I don't know, you can't state it enough. And that by itself kind of makes this worth watching. But again, like you said, kids are going to be bored out of your mind. This is an adult thing. Not because it's mature. There's no cursing. They don't go into depths of whatever. It's just it's presented.
It's not made for kids.
It's presented for adults.
So, final thoughts. Personally, I gave it, I think it was a 4 out of 5. I thought it was a very well-made documentary. It's a little bit slow, so that was kind of took a little bit away from it. But very important thing. It's not something I would watch again, but very interesting. Nice to see this stuff on there. Hopefully, people will check it out. If you're interested at all in those movies, do watch it. But yeah, just go in going that this is not your typical Disney fluff piece, and that I actually really like that part of it, because as I don't really enjoy the Disney fluff pieces where you can, you don't really get anything like decent out of it. I enjoy the more things like this.
I don't mind the fluff pieces, obviously, but this is more satisfying than there. It's all about intent and expectation. When I go to a Disney fluff piece, I know I'm basically getting a marketing pitch dressed up with funny songs and a happy person in front of Disneyland explaining how they love cleaning the streets of Disneyland or whatever. I still enjoy them, but I know what they are. This has a lot more meat to it.
Right, I think pretty much on that there. Anything you want to add on? Anything else you watched over? Because we obviously had the second episode of the Muppets, and I wondered what you thought of that one.
Just really quickly, I did enjoy it. I love the Swedish Chef bit. I was really laughing. Danny Trejo. I was not expecting to see him on the Muppets, but he was really good. I love seeing anything with Beaker and Bunsen. Plus, they're literally lighting things on fire. I don't see how you could not love that. That said, you can see that there is kind of a pattern forming, or what's the word I'm looking for? A routine that they're going to go for. And I really hope that does not hold through, that they kind of shake it up as they get further into the episodes. But I'm still enjoying it. I laughed. I had fun checking out episode 3 as soon as it drops next week.
Yeah, I mean, I do, as I said, I talked about it last week with the second episode stuff. So I kind of one of those things, I think I saw it about like 3 weeks ago. So it's like, oh yeah, that just came out. And it's kind of a fun, it'll be interesting how it goes forward moving. I think we are going to see the same kind of what they've done, like with Miss Piggy and all the rest of it, and the Swedish Chef. They're just going to become regulars. I would have liked a little bit more variety, but there's only 6 episodes. Maybe see how people get on with it. The more Muppet love on Disney Plus, the better. And yeah, so like I said, I enjoyed the series. I'm looking forward to watching a new episode on Friday next week. But we've got a brand new Disney movie coming out next week, Magic Camp. We all know so much about it.
Have we even gotten a trailer for it?
We've not got a trailer. We've not got an official image. We've got a really bad, grainy logo that came out years ago. This is like, if there was ever a case of Disney burying something, this was it. They didn't even include it in the next on Disney. They have released nothing on this movie. And if that doesn't send warning flags up about how bad this thing must be, because Disney it's like, I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if this thing got delayed. If they said, we're pushing it back to September, and go, you didn't tell your marketing people, just take it out the PR thing. Like, if they release this, it's like, I want to watch it, because they've made this whole thing of going, you haven't said a word about it. It's got to be bad.
You and I have honestly done more marketing for this movie than they have, and we have no idea what it's about. I mean, every sign says this is going to be a train wreck, assuming it even comes out. Yeah. Even if it does come out next week, I'm kind of like 50-50. Is it going to show up on the new to Disney Plus banner at all? Or is it just going to be quietly inserted into the middle and just be like, oh yeah, it's there, trust us. And it'll only come if you search for it. I don't know. Part of me is like morbidly curious. What is something so bad that Disney just wants to bury it? On the other hand, I'm also like, I value my time more than these really bad movies. So we'll see.
You just got to admit, it's odd. We're 6 days away from it. It's on their official press release. It's not like we just made this stuff up, but they've not put it on anything. And I mean, I wouldn't be, and I was like going, well, they move the one and only Ivan back because of it. And then they were like, what? It's like, because it didn't make any sense of dropping it on there. And we'd seen it already that it was coming to Disney Plus Hotstar as well. And that kind of got pushed back. And it's like, this is just strange. You know, Disney will usually try and promote anything that they got onto Disney Plus. But I mean, I don't know. This has definitely got all the hallmarks of, you just don't see this from Disney, from really very many companies at all.
You know what? I honestly, if it does drop, we have to watch it and talk about it for like 30 minutes. Yeah. just so everyone can share into the. You know what? Actually, let's do a live stream. We're not. But it's just like, how can we make this any better / worse?
Yeah. Right, on that note, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure, as I said, you do subscribe on the audio platforms or on YouTube. And also as well, make sure if you could, if you've got a buck to spare, head over to Patreon as well and help support the podcast as well. It really makes all of the big difference. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Laters.
Magic Camp.
Magic Camp. Yeah, look at my eyes, you know.
Dude, that's going to be the final scene. It's like, we didn't even film the final scene. Grab that thing from the podcast. Magic.
Laters.